WWE don't always get behind their wrestlers in ways that maximize their potential. Sometimes they do, and that's how we end up with things like Drew McIntyre's current run. But it isn't exactly controversial to say that history is full of names that the promotion definitely could have done more with. I'm Andy for What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 WWE wrestlers who weren't given enough chances. Number 10. TAZZ. TAZZ had an awesome debut win over Kurt Angle at Royal Rumble 2000, but it was never capitalised on in any meaningful way. Even after TAZZ made an ECW return to beat Mike Awesome for the ECW Championship, WWE opted to simply have the New Yorker lose in a brief manner to WWE Champion Triple H. From battling Kurt Angle and going up against the Game, TAZZ ended up transitioning into a feud with the commentary duo of Jerry Lawler and Jim Ross. A tag team with Spike Dudley was a minor highlight for a while, but it wasn't long before the announce desk beckoned and became his future. A real shame, as while injuries had caught up with him by this point, there was definitely more WWE could have done with TAZZ, and at one point he was one of the most believably badass dudes in all of American wrestling. Number 9. Juice Robinson. A simple one this. Juice Robinson good, CJ Parker bad. The old Eco Warrior gimmick was entertaining, but it had a clear ceiling. Juice was never ever going to be more than an enhancement talent in that role, and looking at the tremendous, fiery, flamboyant babyface he has become today really hammers home that WWE missed a trick. Robinson bet on himself by leaving WWE, entering the New Japan Dojo, graduating through the Young Lion system, and becoming one of the company's top foreign stars. He's one of the most ascendant wrestlers in the world over the past few years, and it could have happened in WWE had they not, made him swampy off the Greenpeace protests. Number 8. Raven. Raven was a deep, troubled, intense, multi-layered, philosophical and sociopathic individual. Rarely had the wrestling business ever seen anything like him throughout its storied history, and that led to Raven becoming a mega hit in ECW. He wound up as a potentially great signing for WWE in 2000, but was given precisely 0 chances to ever be anything more than a bit parter. Briefly joining TAZZ in his rivalry with Jerry Lawler, Raven was soon shunted towards the hardcore division, and to be fair, he won that belt a boatload of times, like 400 or whatever, but did any of that really mean anything? Raven, to his credit, did the absolute best with the opportunities he was given, and even crafted a brilliant Puppet Master gimmick change when given creative freedom, but only when he was relegated to Sunday Night Heat. Released in 2003, WWE missed out on the opportunity to do something truly special with such a unique character and performer. Number 7. Harry Smith. On paper, British Bulldog Jr. has so much of what Vince McMahon looks for in a wrestler. He's 6'6", he's 265 pounds of pure muscle, he's 3rd generation, and a technical, legit badass between the ropes. By any measurement, he should have been a major star in a major company. But no, he had 5 years in WWE and barely made a dent outside of the Fun Heart Dynasty trio with Tyson Kidd and Natalya, and the promotion never really got behind him as a single star. Now, perhaps he'll eventually return someday. He's only 34 years old after all, but for now, the son of the legendary British Bulldog will keep tearing it up in MLW. When really, he should be cracking skulls and tying opponents in knots on a bigger stage. Number 6. EC3. What the hell went wrong with this guy? I mean, he had the look, the character, the charisma, the muscles, and at least enough skill to get by. Isn't that pretty much everything that Vince McMahon wants in a wrestler? Well, apparently not, because EC3 accomplished the square root of bugger all on WWE's main roster, or even before that, down in NXT, before the company released him for a second time on Black Wednesday. This came following a tremendous Impact Wrestling run that established him as someone who can be a top guy in a decent American company. All WWE had to do with EC3 was give him a microphone and let him talk his way up the card. Instead, they had him screw around with Dean Ambrose for a little bit, and then nothing. Number 5. Diamond Dallas Page. DDP was a 3-time world champion upon arriving in WWE, with Him and Booker T, the only two WCW talents you could legitimately say were main event level after joining for the Invasion. DDP in his People's Champion moniker positioned him as a major player in Ted Turner's company, yet WWE Brass decided to make Page a creepy pervert who hid in the shadows and stalked The Undertaker's wife. A creepy pervert who hid in the shadows, stalked The Undertaker's wife, and then got pinned by her. Once that extremely one-sided feud was out of the way, Page was never afforded the chance to be anything more than a mid-card guy in WWE. He had a tag team championship run with Chris Kanyon and a little stint with the European Championship, but DDP was out of WWE barely a year after debuting for the company. Number 4. Low-Ki. Having made himself one of the hottest acts in the business, it seemed only a matter of time before Low-Ki ended up in WWE. Indie darlings such as Daniel Bryan, CM Punk, AJ Styles and Samoa Joe all eventually became big-time players in the company, and it's curious that Low-Ki wasn't afforded the same chance as some of his greatest rivals. Now, Ki did have a spell with WWE, winning the second season of the original NXT concept, rubbing shoulders with such luminaries as Lucky Cannon and Eli Cottonwood. Going by the name Caval, Low-Ki was released by WWE just 3 months after debuting on the main roster on SmackDown. Whether it was a size issue or, let's be honest, it's Low-Ki, it was probably an attitude issue, WWE decided that Ki just wasn't worth investing in. Number 3. Colt Cabana. Cabana signed with WWE a couple of years after his former bestie, CM Punk. But while Punk would ascend the card and become a star one day, Colt was left with the piss-boring ring name of Scotty Goldman. Upon finally debuting on SmackDown in August 2008, Goldman lost pretty much every single match he ever competed in, with Cabana even removed from WWE television for a 5-month period prior to his release. Despite putting together the fun and entertaining What's Crackin' and Good as Goldman web shows for WWE.com, the company just didn't look to maximise the charisma and ability that pours from Colt Cabana to this very day, and as such, it came as a surprise to absolutely nobody when it was announced that he had been released by WWE in February 2009. Number 2. Gail Kim. If you're not mentioning Gail Kim amongst the greatest females in American wrestling history, you're not putting enough respect on her goddamn name. But instead of capitalizing on her undeniable skill, WWE chose to use Gail and her talents to make other far less impressive wrestlers look good at her expense. After being released by WWE in 2004, Kim's eventual return in 2008 saw her utilised to make the likes of Maurice, Alicia Fox and Jillian Hall all look like stars. Now, no disrespect to any of those names, but if we're talking pure wrestling, none of them are fit to lace Gail's boots. It's easy to throw shade at Impact Wrestling, but one really earnestly great thing they did was realise just how great Gail Kim is. They afforded her the chance to reach a level on the card that finally matched her talent, and her rivalry with Awesome Kong was a game changer. Gail Kim is somebody who helped change the perception of women's wrestling, but for WWE, they just kinda used her as an enhancement talent, and that sucked. Number 1. Shane Douglas. Shane Douglas has actually had 2 separate runs with WWE. His first one was in 1990, and he largely just worked house shows or was used to fill out the numbers for events like the Royal Rumble. He was, well, nothing really. But it was when Shane returned to the company in 1995 that he truly had the legs cut out from under him. Douglas had become one of the most must-watch performers in the industry, largely due to his trashing of the NWA World title and subsequent creation of the ECW title. By that point in time, the franchise persona was born, and Douglas was one of the best heels in the whole damn business. Upon re-signing with WWE, the franchise gimmick was done away with. Shane Douglas became Dean Douglas, an annoying college teacher. This lasted a grand total of 3 months, with Douglas being one of the many wrestlers of that period who ran afoul of the clique. Even though he can say that he was an Intercontinental Champion, the reign lasted just 20 minutes, and he was merely used as a conduit to get the belt from Shawn Michaels to Razor Ramon without HBK losing face and doing the JOB. A return to ECW sparked another upturn in Douglas's career, with an eventual return of the franchise persona and even a reformation of the Triple Threat stable helping out in that regard. Back in 1995, WWE legitimately had one of the hottest acts in wrestling on their hands, and yet they completely wasted him. So that's our list, but what do you guys think? And can you think of any others? Let us know down in the comment section below. After that, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. You can follow us on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE and myself at Andy H. Murray, where you can tell me how wrong I am. Goodbye!